Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Yates for the Black Alphabet Film Festival, a film festival that centers Black LGBTQ plus stories, and I have the absolute honor to sit with Odidiva, who is an actor, performance artist, drag queen, and activist who is the subject of the documentary film Why You Have to Be Black and Gay, directed by Holly Lehren. Tell us, how did this project come about?
Zanele Muholi. Zanele Muholi is Africa's biggest selling fine artist, actually. We met in 2008 through the head curator of her gallery, Michael Stevenson Gallery, at a Stevenson Gallery. And we hit it off, really. I think the first thing that Muholi said to me was Paris is Burning. Have you seen it? And that was the end. Okay, that was the end of the beginning and the beginning of a great friendship. And then we just started jamming about that. And through the years, and so what happened was that anyway, 2 years later, I think both of our careers were sort of moving at the same time. And then 2 years later, in 2010, Muholi had her first solo exhibition at the Stevenson Gallery. And the weirdest thing was that for the 2 years, Muholi had been really sort of following me around and taking a lot of photographs of my performances. And all the work got stolen. Like 2 months, 6 weeks before the actual solo exhibition. So Muholi had to put together a whole new solo exhibition at the last minute. And I think at like 4 o'clock in the morning after one of my performances at Beefcakes, which is like the local sort of burger joint drag performance venue. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, because for some reason, I enjoy sort of running around the nightclubs in the outfit after my show. Because it's so hard to get out of that. So it takes such a long time to get into the outfit. So you got to like, you know what I mean? I'm like, and plus it's good advertising. So in any case, so we took the picture and it's literally of me still half in makeup, pissed off as hell in my afro wig at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sun rises really early in Cape Town here. So, and that picture I found out sort of like in 2017 when Muholi was invited to the New York Art Biennale called Performa, so Performa 17, and so Muholi asked me to come through and about 21 other queer African people to come through with her. And I remember arriving at it's the Sue Richardson gallery in Chelsea. And I think the boy's name was Alex Pigeon. He goes, "Honey, let me just tell you, you are the reason why Muholi is at this gallery." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about, Willis?" And it was that image really that sort of got the attention. And so it was like kind of like a thank you for Muholi by inviting all the people that have sort of been part of her work to Performa 17. And it was a kind of sort of a collaboration. Because Muholi was literally like front and center in Times Square. Jay-Z had a brand new sort of like album coming out and he was on the side. So Spider-Man would have gone right past her and not him. It was really, I think it was like 14 days of amazing situation to which I got to headline the Stonewall Inn for the group of us performing. And, my one cousin actually flew out from Johannesburg just for the performance. And the only way she could get in, because there was a queue outside the place. And my cousin's like, "You can't believe this," but everyone's going, we come to see Odidiva, we come to see Odidiva. And I'm like, how the hell do these people know? But it turns out that over the years, there's been a following of people from New York City, people working at NGOs, etc., in Cape Town. A year later, after Performa 17 in 2018, The Economist has I think a magazine called 1682 or something like that.
Oh.
And so they were going to put Muholi on the cover. mainly because so much attention had come from the whole week that we had spent at Performa 17. We landed up in Vogue magazine. I mean, we'd gone everywhere. We'd gone from, I mean, we even went to the, if I kill the name, but I think it's the Scheinberg Institute.
Schomburg.
Yes, the Schomburg Institute in Harlem, where, you know, just such an honor really to be in such a place of great African American history.
Yeah.
And that was covered by Vogue magazine. You know, so it created a lot of buzz. Now, a year later, I think the magazine by The Economist, it comes out in summer. It's called 1682. And then Mark Kafissa, who is a well-known queer writer of Jewish descent, you know, he wrote a book called Dream Deferred. He wrote a book called Dream Deferred on President Mbeki of South Africa. But he's written for the Village Voice, etc. You know, he graduated in Princeton. So the article came out and he wanted a quote from me. And apparently, so Holly, who has always been interested in drag, she read the article and then proceeded to hunt me down. and what happened was that she hunted me down and got hold of me, and it was like 2019, and I think it was, you know, pretty hectic time of year. My dad was sort of getting very ill with cancer. Yeah, sort of like November that she got hold of me. I think by February my dad just passed, and we went, and the following week that we put my dad away, we went into lockdown. And funny enough, Holly became the only sort of piece of sanity that I had where I could get up in my drag in the middle of lockdown, because, you know, we were all under house arrest, and have a good chat and a chin wag, or really about, you know, my life and etc. And that's how it all sort of began.
I love that you have this relationship with the director via a camera, but they're not in the room with you. And it's beautiful to see that process. And I think that you can learn so much about a person through a camera. It's why social media is so popular. And there's a moment where Holly asks you about a jacket that you're wearing, and you state that it was the jacket that you wore for your father's funeral. And
oh yes. Yeah.
And it's just, in that moment, I know exactly who you are as a person by what you reveal. And it was such a beautiful moment to me, because it shows who you are as a creative, who you are as a Black queer person, and how you want to be perceived to the world. And so my next question is for you. Having grown up...
That's a lot in one question.
All right. So having grown up in apartheid and under strict laws about homosexuality, where did the fearlessness to birth Odidiva into the world come from?
My two crazy parents. My two crazy parents. I don't, you know, my parents have had, how do I put it? I mean, funny enough, I've moved into a neighborhood where the oldest friends I've ever known, like since I was 5, are also live in the same neighborhood.
Oh wow!
And I remember I was in play school, you know, just turned 5 years old, and I remember we were looking through a whole bunch of clothing brought, given to the church by volunteers from like Europe, you know, in England, you know, to my mother, and we were looking through the clothing. And my mother was like, "Well, pick something because we're gonna give this out to the congregation. So what do you want?" And I remember I picked these high-heeled boots. you know, sort of, but they were very kind of like Avengers 1960s boots. So, they weren't high heels, but they were heeled boots that came up to like, to my knee.
Yeah.
And I wore those to death, like to play school.
Okay.
And nobody said, you're not wearing those boots.
Yeah.
Nobody said, are you sure? And the strangest thing was that, at the time it was He-Man and She-Ra were the great sort of like characters. Every time they asked me who you playing, I was like, She-Ra. There were, some people would hesitate, but nobody really, was fussed because, well, She-Ra was like He-Man, really. It wasn't like we could not carry on playing. We would. So nobody was like, worried about it. It was like, okay. I was always playing I was always playing one of those fierce female characters that I was watching on TV. And I guess because the characters were action heroes as well, nobody really was like, okay, you know what I mean? It was like fussed. Nobody was worried about that, and nobody was coming to me and saying, no, you should not be playing that character.
Yeah.
And my dad being an Anglican priest, it's a little bit, it's one of those situations where, he's such an authority, especially in the Black community, that if he doesn't say anything, nobody else is.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of leeway in order to be myself, really. But at the same time, South African society in general, especially even middle class society or even working class society, is very conservative. So, but in a sense that, it's pretty much like even in the Black community in America, people go to church, and they put their Sunday best on. And then we even got another element, which is also the sort of traditional African element.
Yeah.
But in a sense is that if a person can find their place within that community, generally, nobody really pays you much mind.
Okay.
Or I would say within the peoples that my family is. So it might just be the fact that we come from a very Mfengu background, which is, generationally turned to Christianity before other ethnic races, in Southern Africa. As well as the fact that from that you get that sort of then Anglican liberal side of things, which includes Archbishop Tutu, which my dad was a friend and colleague of. So it's all part of that. But really a lot of me not thinking is what all of this fierceness that people see is. I'm not really thinking. I'm not in my right mind. But also because I didn't have anybody telling me no. Okay. I don't second guess myself a lot of the time. I normally jump in and then only realize later, what did you just do? At the same time, in 1993, I was 14 years old. So all I could do was watch RuPaul going supermodel, and, and Madonna's Vogue came out when I was in still in prep school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I get to do all the things. I get to do all the things that I wanted to do when I was a teenager. Right now, God bless the return of the 90s. Yeah.
If I were to see Odidiva in a performance, what would I see on the stage?
Funny enough, I've just been editing myself I was just editing a performance that I did last night, and it was a cover. I mean, it was a cover version of Without Me by Fantasia. Barino with Kelly Rowland and Missy Elliott.
Okay.
But for me, it's a fact is because I'm performing live, I'm a live singer. I get to remake the song in my own way.
Okay.
Kind of like Whitney Houston. You would never ever see Whitney Houston do the same performance of the same song twice. It was just, it's always another version. It's a different version. And what you're gonna get, I think Design and Daba magazine actually said, loud, proud, and political. So you're gonna get a lot of that. It's it's a song and dance show, but you're going to get a lot of satire, comedy, a little bit of slam poetry,
Okay.
and just general commentation. I mean, when I was at Beefcakes, it was, it's the New South Africa, as they say. But I'm in this burger joint, this gay burger joint, and I would get up on stage and I would look out to the audience and be like, "Oh my God, I am the only black person here who's not in the kitchen." That would be my opening comment. Not necessarily that I'm actually making a joke. It was actually me thinking out loud.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of commentary that you're gonna get from Odidiva. Is a constant pushback on the audience.
Okay.
So if it's a black audience, you're gonna get it as well. because I think I learned a lot from people like Eddie Izzard. But essentially, it is about really involving your audience. So I guess that's something I also saw in a movie called oh my God, My Beautiful Laundrette? No, My Beautiful Laundrette was the first movie, but it's the same director. But these two boys in a working class, teenage boys in a working class housing in the UK who fall in love. And it was one of those things that the comedian went into the audience and obviously and makes a comment about the couple. But the one thing I loved about the comedian was that the jokes weren't at the audience. It was an observation, but it wasn't to strip people of their dignity,
Okay.
but kind of to help them point out their self-deprecation,
Okay.
to allow them to include self-deprecation. And I think that it's important that people don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
But also to understand that the context of where they are.
Okay. All right.
And then the songs just help to, entertain people in between, because I watch too many music videos with Janet Jackson in them. Those days we had VHS, so we just sit there and rewind, play. Wait, what's going on?
During the filmmaking process, did you learn something new about yourself?
There was a lot of learning during that whole entire period. I remember things better with more detail than I thought I did. And people must understand that there's a lot that goes into coming out from apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
We missed out on a lot.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that we had to catch up on. And the few of us who actually who did go to private schools and had the opportunity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It meant that when the doors opened in 1994 for the New South Africa, we had to, I was sitting, for most of the 1990s, for most of my high school time, I was going to the US Embassy and into the library looking up places where I would go and study when I finished high school, because I was like, well, I'm getting the hell out of here because of the laws. So I was picking which school. I was already okay, where did Denzel Washington go to? Where did he do his theater? I think it was the American Theater School in New York. I was looking at places. I was checking out, bursaries and funding. I was ready to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I was in my final year of high school in 1996 when the new constitution came out.
Yes.
Which then had the clause in it, that says no discrimination, even according to sexual orientation, at first in the world. And I was like, okay, I'm not going anywhere. It's just, it was real time
Yeah.
transformation for me. It was real time transformation. It meant that I could actually stay, continue to do what I was doing,
Yeah.
and and for me, really, it was also a case of, well, if this is what the Constitution says, well, I'm going to put it into practice right now, not tomorrow, not maybe in the next, when everybody thinks it's okay. It's
Yeah.
going to be like, no, if the Constitution says, well, let's see what you're talking about
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And that was the case. So it was like it was like being just like being a guinea pig for for all this new South Africa stuff. But it was important because we had to live it now.
Yeah.
If we didn't live it now, if we didn't actually take hold of it right now, even when it was still excited with Nelson Mandela, in a couple of years' time, it could have changed. I had used to have asthma as a kid.
Okay.
So I had to. So whenever everybody else was getting excited, or everybody else was getting, I had to sit and keep calm
Yeah.
in order to breathe. So it's something that's even like a switch. Even when everybody else goes into panic mode, I actually literally go silent and sit and observe. And it's that ability to watch, things ticking over at certain times. That kind of outsider always looking in thing gives you a lot of time to sort of reflect on things in a different way. And I think a lot of the time people are so in it that they don't get a chance to actually see the other side, or just what would it be like looking on the sea.
Okay.
And my parents always had that. So they were always very quiet. My parents don't drink, they don't smoke, but lively personalities, the both of them. But that ability to reflect was always something my parents instilled in me. And I think that's what has sort of helped me along the way, is the ability to pray, meditate, whatever it is, but to go back and go, wait, what just happened?
Okay.
Or how does that work out?
Okay.
And that, I guess, is the question of the actual documentary, is that.
Okay.
But I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, seriously speaking, the lockdown was crazy. The lockdown was very crazy. And the whole entire process was very, very strange to me, because it was, right now we're talking, but as you said, you could see from the jackets, the question about the jackets. It's so interesting. How to put it? Like a couple of, just before lockdown, I think it was one about 2017. And I'm at this bar, and I literally because now we have a tourist season in summer in Cape Town. So now we get to sort of watch first world dating games sometimes to see how these things work. And I remember sitting and watching. I was like, literally, the boys walked in, and people were on their phones, went ding 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 onto Grinder, and they were looking for the character. And I'm going, why don't you just walk over and talk to the person? No,
Yeah.
honey. Find them on Grinder first. Go. Send the hello. And it was an incredible, I don't know, it was a learning moment for me.
Yeah.
Because I was carrying myself silly. I was like, these children have lost their minds. The mother is right there. It even says on the phone. He's 2 meters away. And these children are but it was I got it. For me, it made sense, because I remember before there was Facebook,
Yeah.
and I was touring a lot in Europe. And one of the things is that in Cape Town, because it's summer season, we get a lot of overseas tourists. So if I was going, let's say the next, and I was always touring sort of Northern Hemisphere summer or wherever. So if I was going to Australia, I'd meet a whole lot of Australians that summer. so by the time I got to whatever city I was going to in Sydney or in Melbourne, I had a couple of friends. So if I was going to Germany the next year, boom, you know what I mean? And back then, there was nothing called Facebook in 2004, 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So, and I think we got invited to the Vienna Live Ball. And we didn't know what the fuck Vienna Live Ball was. But every time, but funny thing was that there was Gaydar.
Yeah.
And Gaydar was much better than Napster or any of that nonsense. Gaydar was like literally what Facebook is.
Yeah.
But it was only amongst us gays. And so I appreciate, and the craziest thing is that I appreciate that technology so much for me. And I always remind the children, I say to the children, just remember one thing. The gaydar was created by two Afrikaans boys from South Africa. I actually even met the guys who started Grindr, part of the team. I think two guys are actually from Cape Town.
Okay.
Colin Fiorbra was one of them who actually created Grindr. Straight people are always like, and right now I'm on a electronic dance music radio station called motherfm.com.
Okay.
And it's like, how did electronic dance music begin? Why is it called house?
Yeah.
Because, honey, the godfather of the house is Frankie Knuckles. Electronic dance music was started by queer black people in Chicago. It's like, it's that thing of, over here, why does black gay life have to be so damn hard? What are you talking about? If it wasn't for us, the world would be backward. It's like, children, wake up. It's like, for that's as simple as it gets. It's like, for those, you know what I mean? There's a reason why there's some people who have children, and then there's those people who just have too much time on their hands because they don't have any kids, which means that they can actually innovate more and spend more time doing, turning disco into house with a 440 to the floor. It's, you know what I mean? It's that simple thing. And yes, life is a contradiction, but it's I still stand by the fact that everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a purpose and a place in the world. Just find it.
I could talk to you all night long, but sadly,
Victor,
I have to go. But where can people find you on social media?
Okay, so social media. So at Odidiva. So as you say it, Odidiva. At Odidiva on Instagram.
Okay.
Odidiva on Facebook. Odidi Mfenyana on Facebook. Twitter and X and mine don't work well because I changed my cell phone numbers, can't get back into my account. So www.odidiva.wix.com/Odidiva. That's the website. And SoundCloud. Just go at Odidiva as well. I've been pretty good on finding my Horica before anybody else grabs it. So, and SoundCloud, you can hear my music on SoundCloud. So it's Odidiva, yes, Nocturnal, yeah, that's Odidiva. So that's where you can find all my stuff. That's where you'll get me.